What is going on, community? What is going on, people of Earth? I am TJ, aka Flash by Night. Welcome back to the channel, and we are going to try and do something new. As most of you may know, we are on the countdown to Night's End, where Jed MacKay is presumably going to end his Moon Knight run, and presumably we're going to see the end of Moon Knight. So what I want to do is start over at issue number 1 of MacKay's run and hit some of the highlights, hit some of the important parts, hit some of the pivotal points, and hit some of the things I just plain enjoyed. With that being said, we're going to start with issue number 1, where we start off with a familiar line. Welcome to the Midnight Mission. I am Mr. Knight. How can I help you? So Moon Knight, or Mr. Knight for right now, has set up this place in his neighborhood called the Midnight Mission, and it's kind of twofold, right? You've got the mission, which most superheroes go out on. Also remember, this is a religion for Moon Knight, so it serves as a spiritual safe place and a place of shelter for all who seek it. So we get into our story with 2 vampires and 4 newly turned vampires who didn't volunteer to be turned in a van going to possibly turn more vampires. And you see the 2 vampires up front mentioning that they brought the other 4 into the structure. If the structure sounds familiar to those who've read it, you know the structure is a group of vampires we meet later on in the run. And vampire or not, the 4 young people in the back of this van are travelers of the night, and Moon Knight is coming to protect them. After Moon Knight dispatches of the 2 elder vampires, we found out that he did indeed spare the 4 young vampires, and we found this out through a conversation that he's been having with Dr. Sturman. So one of the things I really loved in the first few issues of Moon Knight is that you get story on 2 fronts. You get the action, you get the adventure that Moon Knight is having, but you're also getting caught up with Moon Knight's history and getting caught up with Moon Knight's story through his conversations with Dr. Sturman, who is a psychologist who's been recommended to Moon Knight by the Avengers. And over the next few pages, Mr. Knight and Dr. Sturman go back and forth as he tells Dr. Sturman all of his history, and at the same time catches up new readers and readers who need to be refreshed on some of the basic Moon Knight details. He tells Dr. Sturman about his mission from Khonshu. He tells Dr. Sturman about how he was a Marine, then a CIA agent, and then a mercenary for hire. How he was killed and brought back to life by Khonshu to be his fist of vengeance, and how he's died and come back to life at least a couple of more times. And I'm gonna have to dig into that myself because I'm unfamiliar with those exact times. Getting back to the Moon Knight action, an older lady comes to visit the Midnight Mission and asks Mr. Knight for his help because things are happening in her apartment. He gets there, and apparently there's this villain named Vermin, who I am unfamiliar with, who has managed to multiply and is threatening the tenants of this building. And Moon Knight makes it a point to let Vermin know 2 things. I am not Spider-Man, and I cannot die, and gives them the option to either clear the neighborhood or test him further. I believe he wants to be tested further. Then back with Dr. Sturman, Mr. Knight is explaining how he had Khonshu locked up on Asgard for his actions in the Age of Khonshu story in Avengers. However, he still believes in Khonshu's mission, even if he doesn't believe in Khonshu. And so he set up the Midnight Mission to keep on that path. Later on that night, he gets a call saying that the villain 8-Ball is harassing someone, but when he gets there, this person has everything well in hand. He introduces himself as Dr. Bader, and he knows who Moon Knight is, he knows who Khonshu is, and he gives Moon Knight the cold shoulder, but lets Moon Knight know that he knows more about Khonshu than Moon Knight expected. We also see the building of this work relationship between Mr. Knight and one of the vampires he rescued, Reese, who stays there as his secretary almost. And he says that he likes Reese because she doesn't want to change him. But as we get ready to close, we see two separate individuals watching out for Mr. Knight. One individual with some equipment for a good old-fashioned stakeout, who also looks to know any and everything about Moon Knight because he knows his separate identities, he knows his history, he knows Moon Knight. And the second person we're left with is Dr. Bader, who we find out is also a disciple of Khonshu, considers himself to be the other fist, and will soon confront Moon Knight for his lack of loyalty towards Khonshu. So that was Moon Knight issue number 1. And we got a few things out of the book. The first thing I picked up on was the structure. Jed MacKay planted that there, said nothing else, and just left it to come back to at a later time. We've got the new setup for Moon Knight and the Midnight Mission, which, to be honest, I really like. I missed out on the Heroes for Hire years ago, so having my favorite hero have a setup in New York where people can come in and ask for his help is really cool. We also made sure that we know Moon Knight can't die. We've heard it 3 or 4 times throughout this issue, and we know trouble is on the horizon from at least 2 directions. I'm not sure how often I'm going to do these. I'm hoping to do them every Monday, even though this will probably come out Tuesday. But I do want to get through the run, pick up on some of the finer points, and walk through some of the things I think are important and will come into play as we get to the end of the run and Night's End. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you saw something you liked. If you did enjoy yourself, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to keep up with me, keeping up with Moon Knight, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Of course, feel free to leave comments. And as we always do at this time, love yourself, love others, and I will be back in a flash.